are you a fan of noir series, detectives, cases, mysteries? What about comics? Superheroes, transformations, fighting bad guys with tools or hand-to-hand combat? Well, if you answered yes to one of those things, congratulations. And if you answered yes to both of those things, double congratulations, because Kamen Rider W is the show for you. If you answered no to either of those things, please don't click off. I need the attention. I feel like I can call myself a Kamen Rider fanboy at this point. I think I've upgraded to that ranking now after all these 2 years. I mean to say, this rider's not my first rodeo. I've seen Kamen Rider 01, Build, most of Kiva unfortunately, some of Kuga, and now all of W. Now, I'm not just saying all this just to flex, but instead just to show that I kinda get the way Kamen Rider works. At least I think so. But this is going to be my first time actually sitting down and looking back at what I watched. So for those who are already Kamen Rider fans, I hope this dive into a Kamen Rider watcher's mind is fun for you. And for those who are watching and haven't seen Kamen Rider, or specifically this Kamen Rider, I hope by the end you have a good idea whether or not you want to try it out for yourself. Now, just as the title and thumbnail say, this is a non-spoiler review, so anybody can watch it. I plan on also releasing a spoiler review or discussion after this video. So for people who have seen W and want a deeper dive into what I think as far as favorite episodes or what I specifically didn't like about something, then yeah, that should be coming out one day. So thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it. If you guys end up enjoying this video, then you can like the video, comment, subscribe, all those things really help me out. And sharing helps a lot too. So let's not waste any more time and get on with the review. So the Kamen Rider series I've seen so far all have a central theme, a base that's used in order to show off the usual things like the monster of the week and different transformations we usually see. 01 had androids, Build had science, Kiva had music and goth stuff. Kamen Rider W borrows from the noir genre. The general structure of this show is that the main group get a case that they need to solve. Think Detective Conan, but less headless people. These cases end up being connected to a thing called Gaia memories. These are the tools that are used to create the monsters of the week, called dopants. This is where our main characters come in. Shotaro and Philip combine to create one Kamen Rider, Kamen Rider W, or Double. This is honestly a really unique idea, having two people share one Kamen Rider, and the show finds interesting ways to show off that idea. Even though the cases rarely deal in murder, the tone for the cases can get pretty serious. I mean, for one thing, the Gaia memories themselves are metaphors for drug use. We get to see different kinds of people using these memories, bad people, desperate people, pressured people. While the idea isn't explored as much as it could be, this doesn't turn into Euphoria, they do mirror the experience a little bit. Honestly, you can go the whole series and not notice it and it won't hurt your experience. The tone surrounding the cases honestly varies. Some would be pretty lighthearted, nothing crazy, and then the next episode will suddenly hit you with a client that says, "This assassin murdered my husband, and now he's coming after me!" So while the show isn't gory or creepy, there are plenty of heavy topics that can connect with older viewers for sure. The mysteries themselves? I don't know, maybe I'm just dumb, but I didn't feel like it was possible to follow along. This isn't like other mystery entertainment where they'll drop clues and you, the audience member, had a shot at solving everything. At least I didn't see it that way. Instead, a lot of important facts are hidden from you until it's too late. And the only way for the main characters to actually find a lot of these facts is through supernatural means. So if you're looking for a show that'll scratch that mystery itch and make you feel like the detective, I don't think you'll find it here. But while I wasn't feeling like a detective, I did feel the detective atmosphere. There was something good about always entering the main character's agency and getting a new client. Watching them investigate and ask questions, meeting informants when they needed, well, information. It was like sinking into a soft chair. After a few episodes, it felt comfortable following the characters as they worked a case. The people in this agency, Shotaro, Philip, and Akiko, are the main protagonists of the series. There are more down the line, but for the sake of no spoilers, we'll focus on these three. The most important thing a Kamen Rider series needs to do is differentiate themselves from other Kamen Rider series. With so many out already, it's probably not easy trying to find a way to not look similar to other series out there. And of course the villains of the week and the multiple different rider forms play a big part in this, but a show can get dragged by having a boring set of main characters. We follow these characters so much that their personalities and storyline are just as important as the over-the-top action we get each episode. And thank the writers, these characters do their job perfectly. I couldn't imagine following a more likable and fun group of characters. You have Shotaro, a man trying to be this perfect, cool, stone cold detective, but he's also super sensitive and makes a fool of himself a lot. Philip, this kid who's super curious and spontaneous. Akiko, I was worried she was gonna get the short end of the stick and just be this useless damsel, but no, she has plenty to prove herself and gets many moments to shine and learn how to be her own detective like her late father. All these characters can get very extreme as far as character traits, but despite that, there is more to them than just those extreme traits. Throughout the series, we see these three dealing with their own problems and growing as characters because of those problems. And the best part is, they do it together. This is such a great team. Personally, I'm a fan of the kind of teams that are just filled with absolute dorks, just walking disasters. And if you're a fan of that too, you'll love this team. A lot of that has to do with the actors too. They all have great chemistry with each other. No one felt awkward or out of place. They were all over the top and they were all able to match each other, which is great. I know an anime of W is coming this year, 2022, and it's supposed to continue the story, and I'm excited, don't get me wrong, but I already know that it won't feel the same. It can't, because these actors put their own spin on these characters, something that the animation and voice actors won't be able to replicate, which, like I said, is fine. They can do their own thing. The reoccurring side characters were also great. Shotaro having his own version of the Baker Street Irregulars, giving him info, was really fun, and the cops Makura and Gino were hilarious too. But all great heroes need good villains to match them. Kamen Rider W has the organization known as the Museum. Their biggest crime is spreading boredom across the world and owning overcharging gift shops. No, I kid. Their actual crime is inhuman experimentation, murder, and horrible terrorism. Alright, maybe now it's not the best time for jokes. As a whole, Museum is a fun group to follow. The villains definitely get better and feel more of a threat as the series moves along and we learn more about their organization. I'm a big fan of evil organizations with different factions, like a large web of evil. And if you are too, you'll grow to really like the Museum. Just give it a few episodes, because at least for me, it took a while to start to get that organized feeling from this organization. Now separately, the main villains of this organization for the most part are a lot of fun. My least favorite character among them really is the main one, funny enough. Ryubi, the man in charge, isn't annoying or incompetent, but the show really doesn't give us a lot about him. Out of all the villains, he feels really distant. Not in a cool, mysterious way, but instead in a, oh yeah, you're here too kind of way. And that doesn't change for me until the very end of the series, when they finally focus on him. Luckily, the villains don't need him to feel threatening. Saiko, Wakana, Kirihiko, and others are enough to support interest in the museum. They all feel like their own people, and they all have threatening abilities. It's not perfect though. Like Saiko really fell off for me once a certain bad guy comes into the picture, and Wakana completely changes personalities near the end, and we never really get a moment to talk about it with her. But overall, the villains do what they need to, and are a good match with our main heroes. Futo is the fictional city our heroes and villains live in, and it's the one that Kamen Rider has sworn to protect. Something I can say about Futo is that it feels very homey. Like it's like any other city, it's got its good people and its bad people, but the characters, not just the main ones, but the side characters and the background characters, the more you see them and get to know them, and the more people you meet, the more you want Kamen Rider to protect it, you know? Futo just has a lot of character to it. Hell, it even has its own cute little mascot. It's pretty big. It's not like I know every single part of the city or know every single citizen, but it reminds me of like Beach City or Paris in Miraculous Ladybug. The little we do get from this city introduces a lot of fun and over-the-top characters and events and locations that give off this really fun vibe. Out of all the Kamen Rider series I've seen so far, the only one that I feel connected to is Futo. I guess I get why Shotaro is really obsessed with it. Like if Futo was a real place, I mean, I'd visit it. Kamen Rider W, like most, if not all Kamen Rider series, is a continuous story Monster of the Week type story. I've said this before and I'll say it again, this kind of storyline isn't horrible, but I can't understand people who get frustrated while watching shows like this. When you have an interesting storyline with a good mystery or good villains, it's really disorienting when a show will suddenly pivot into a more episodic episode that's completely separate from the main story. That's why it's so important for these episodes to be really fun and entertaining, because you basically gotta distract us from the fact that we're not continuing the story. For the most part, they are able to do that. There are a lot of fun episodic episodes, but there were a handful of episodes that dragged on, and I believe the biggest reason is because they came right after a really good episode, a really plot-heavy episode. But they are few and far between. For the most part, I enjoyed the side episodes. As for the actual story of the show, it's honestly pretty loose. Really reminds me of Detective Conan, where yes, there is a main villain and they're definitely up to something, but the heroes aren't going crazy trying to find out what that something is. And there's no major time limit that's making anyone stressed either. They just wait for jobs to come in, and if one of them leads them to the main plot, well, lucky us. The story is pretty lighthearted thanks to the crazy over-the-top tone. The comedy, like in a lot of Kamen Rider series, mirrors over-the-top anime comedy, which take that as you will, and that is mixed with good wholesome moments among the characters. But don't let those moments fool you, because this show can get dark. Death and misery is something you'll find plenty in W, but they also use those horrible moments to bring the wholesome moments. So even though these sad moments are extreme, they're not edgy, which I think is important. And character and story are important, of course, but I mean, come on. Sometimes we just want to sit back, turn off our brains for a scene, and just enjoy some fun action. And that's something this show is full of. Kamen Rider W is a very unique series to me. All Kamen Riders, as far as I know, have transformations, different forms that grant them different abilities. And while W has transformations too, they use them in a clever way. Like I stated earlier, Kamen Rider W is two people in one body. Because of that, they're able to do some clever things. The biggest thing they can do is mix their transformations together for combo attacks. So you'll sometimes have fire and metal, or trigger and elastic, or wind and metal. This allows the people in charge of coming up with fights this opportunity to mix and match, which always keeps the fighting interesting. That's something I haven't seen in Kamen Rider before. I mean, it's crazy I'm seeing such a unique idea from over a decade ago. I was also a really big fan of the over-the-top CGI fights. Yes, they are really dated. If you're looking for Disney Plus level of CGI, you're obviously not going to find it in a television show from 2009. But if you're like me, the actual action going on will distract you from the quality and detail of the monsters. The actual action is a lot of fun and creative, so if you can, I recommend just looking past the fact that some of the monsters look like PS2 bosses and just enjoy the actual action, cause it's a lot of fun. It's hard for a Kamen Rider series to be memorable and unique, since there are just so many out there. But Kamen Rider W is a series I won't forget. It's one of those shows that you know while watching it, it's gonna be nostalgic. It's probably why I got a manga and an anime continuing the story. The characters are likable and wholesome, the story is engaging, the villains are threatening, and the abilities are creative. If this is your first Kamen Rider series, you picked a good one to introduce you to the show. And if you're a longtime fan who hasn't seen this show, don't worry about being bored, this series has plenty to keep you tuned in.